Hello, my name is Hans George Campbell. Today I want to show you this brand new purple Amiga 500 Plus motherboard that I recently purchased on eBay. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up this package. Yeah, this is a brand new purple Amiga 500 Plus motherboard with gold-plated contacts, and it's a beautiful motherboard. Just wait till you see it. I can't wait to show it to you guys. But I recently purchased this from a seller on eBay, and I think he did a really nice job on this board. I just had to have one. Just had to have it. I think I paid like, I don't know. I don't want to cut into the board. Yeah, I don't really want to cut into the board. I don't know how he's got this thing in here, but I don't want to cut into the board. So that's why I'm going up on the razor blade, so that the actual blade's not going to cut in. You know, I'm going up with the sharp part. And this should do it. I mean, well, there's that. And there's that. And we got that. Okay. And I think if I cut the other side the same way, I don't know. I think I might have to... Yeah, I don't want to take a chance on cutting this board. Yeah. It's a beautiful board. It really is. Beautiful board. Okay, well, there's the board. It was, I think, pretty well packaged. I mean, thick pieces of cardboard, so it's pretty well packaged, I think. But, okay. So it's packaged in this, he wrapped it in this stuff here. I want to try to hang on to this, because I can reuse this kind of stuff, you know, so. Don't do that. Yeah, try to hang on to this kind of stuff, because anything I can reuse for packing my own stuff, you know, I try to hang on to it. Okay. Yeah, pretty nice board. I like it. As soon as I saw the way it was made, I thought to myself, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful Amiga 500 motherboard. I just gotta have it. Gotta have it." And you'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There's that word again, gorgeous. You know what? Can I pull it out like that? Yeah. Okay, I'll save this for later on. Okay. So he's also got it in this stuff, which I'm definitely going to be reusing this. But drum roll, please. But, oh man, look at that. Is that like, I don't know, the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Let me zoom in a little bit, okay? Let's zoom in on this baby, okay? Oh yeah, look at that. It's just, oh man. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I love that purple color. Purple is a royal color. I love purple. It's one of my favorite colors. And I love the gold plating. In fact, I was just talking about this when I showed my brand new blue Amiga 2000 motherboard. If you've seen that video, or if you watched that video, I mentioned that that one would have looked really good if the traces and everything was gold plated. And so I don't know if the person that made this board watched that video and thought, well, okay, yeah, that would be a good idea. I'll just make everything gold plated, you know. And, oh yeah. But this is a brand new Amiga 500 Plus motherboard. Brand new. And instead of it taking the barrel-shaped battery, you know, the barrel battery, it takes a CR2032 coin battery. But it's an absolutely gorgeous motherboard. I am going to build this one because I'm planning on using this motherboard in my next Amiga 500 tower build, which I am going to do on camera. So you guys get to actually, you know, watch me build my next Amiga 500 tower, all the work that's involved in building one of those. Last night, I found out about something that I didn't know about. I saw it on eBay. I was looking on eBay in the vintage computer section under Amiga, and apparently some smart person made, it's an RGB to HDMI adapter board that plugs into this socket here, the Denise socket. Okay, and then you hook up, I think it's a Raspberry Pi Zero up to it, which outputs I think it's a mini HDMI jack, you know, has a mini HDMI plug. And I thought that's really interesting. You know, I could just use one of those, and then I can use this computer to do playthroughs of anything that I'm doing on this Amiga computer, like gameplay footage, or if I'm showing you how to do things in Deluxe Paint or whatever, you know, how to do ray trace animations and things like that. This would be perfect. They also have something like that for the Amiga 2000 that plugs into the video slot of the Amiga 2000. It's a board that plugs in, and then there's a connector on the board where you plug in a Raspberry Pi Zero, and of course it gives you HDMI output. And I'm definitely going to buy one of those for one of my Amiga 2000 computers. But yeah, so this one here I'm going to build as a standard Amiga 500 Plus board. It's just going to have your 1 megabyte of chip memory, your 1 megabyte Agnes chip. It's going to have the Super Denise chip. So when I plug in that that RGB to HDMI board, okay, I'm going to have to make sure that the jumper is set for Super Denise. Because I am going to be using that RGB to HDMI board, I don't have to solder on these parts here. I don't know if I still have to solder on the video hybrid or not to get this to work. I'm not sure about that, so if any of you know about that, please let me know in the comments section. I am going to solder on the parallel port, probably also the serial port. I'm going to use the parallel port for digitizing, because I'm going to show you guys how to use DigiView Gold and how to do digitizing at a professional level using a tripod, a high quality made in Japan Panasonic black and white security camera with a I think it's got an F mount. I think they're called an F mount or C mount. I can't remember what they're called. But it allows me to use Nikon 35mm lenses on this black and white security camera. And so I'm going to hook up, I usually use a 50mm older Nikon lens, which has glass optics. You cannot buy camera lenses anymore with glass optics. They're all acrylic now. So if you want glass optics and camera lenses for doing digitizing or professional photography, you really have to go with the older vintage Nikon lenses. And so that's what I'm going to be using for digitizing things with this Amiga 500 Plus computer. I'm also going to be using a variable zoom lens that goes from, I think it's 35 millimeter all the way up to like 135 millimeters, something like that. And the reason why you want to use a lens like that is so that instead of moving your subject closer or farther away from the camera, or vice versa, moving the camera closer or farther away from your subject matter that you're trying to digitize, you can just zoom in and out with the lens. And I'm going to show you how to do all of that. Now, a lot of you think that you just use the digitizer, the camera, on this setup that DigiView, and not DigiView, but NewTek used to sell for the DigiView. You know, they have the two circle fluorescent lights and stuff like that, you know. You don't have to use that. What you do is you just put the camera on a tripod, okay? And whatever you're digitizing, it doesn't have to be a picture. It can be an actual 3D object. You can digitize anything and feed it into the Amiga computer's parallel port, you know, and take it into Deluxe Paint 3 or whatever, you know, and work with it. But yeah, I'm going to show you how to do all that. That's one of the things I'm going to be using this Amiga 500 Plus tower for. Yeah. But I'm going to build it in sections. And I'm going to build it under the camera, so you guys get to watch me build this. But it's an absolutely gorgeous motherboard. It really is. An absolutely gorgeous motherboard. I don't have to solder on this connector, because I'm never going to have anything plugged into the memory expansion bay right here. Because I'm going to have the 1 meg chip memory right here. And I have a Supra SCSI hard drive board that I can plug into here, which, you know, you can plug into, what, 8 megabytes of fast memory, plus it has a SCSI controller for a SCSI hard drive or whatever. Plus there's also modern things that you can use to plug in here, to where you can use a compact flash card for a hard drive. I'll probably go that route, because I am thinking about plugging in Kickstart, what is it, 3.1.4 ROM. That's what I'm thinking about plugging into here. Yeah. I was reading some comments in the forums. One guy mentioned that the person that actually designed and made this board, that he was thinking about changing out these now hard to find, almost impossible to find 23-pin connectors here for the video and the floppy drive ports, to more standardized 25-pin. I recommend not doing that. Instead, I would recommend putting in a 9-pin D-sub or a 15-pin D-sub here. You know, redo the traces on the board to accept either a 9-pin or a 15-pin D-sub connector here. And I'll explain why in a moment. And a 15-pin D-sub connector here. And again, I'll explain why in a moment. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys this board. I think it's really, it's a work of art. I think it's beautiful. I love the purple color. I love the gold plating on it. I like this cute little graphic right here. I think it's really cool, you know. Of course, the Commodore logo. I think that's pretty nice, you know. I'll show you the back of the board. I don't want to touch the fingers, but there's the back of the board. And as you can see, the board is just absolutely beautiful. It's just absolutely well done. It's an absolutely beautiful board, work of art. I mean, I just love this board. And trust me, it takes a lot to impress me. It really does. So when I'm impressed with a product, yeah, that's a product that you really should consider buying, because I think this is very nice. And yeah, I think I paid like $60 for it plus shipping, or something like that. 60 or 65 bucks for it plus shipping, which is reasonable for something like this. You know, it's a very nice board. I really like it. Beautiful board. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I found out that you can get brand new video hybrid chips to go in here. You can get them brand new. They're like, I don't know, less than 20 bucks. You know, they're not that expensive. You know, they're reasonably priced. But yeah, you can get brand new video hybrids to go here. So most of these parts, I'd say all of them except for the 23-pin connectors, they're readily available. You know, you've got your 68,000 microprocessor socket, which I believe is 64-pin. And you've got your Fat Agnes socket, which is 84-pin. You've got your two CIA sockets and your Kickstart ROM socket. All three of these are 40-pin, but if you notice, there's the extra 2 pins here. I don't know why those are there, because I don't think a 42-pin socket is available, you know. So if any of you know what those extra 2 pins are for, please let me know in the comment section. I'm sure all of us would like to know what those 2 extra pins are for. Yeah. And then the Denise socket, the Paula socket, and the Gary socket, those are 48-pin sockets. And of course your memory IC sockets, they're 20-pin. A lot of your support chips are all 20-pin sockets. So yeah, this would be easy to build. I recommend using high quality dual wipe IC sockets. Do not use machine sockets, except if you're planning on using, if you're planning on plugging in one of those RGB to HDMI boards, for this area only, the Denise chip, I would recommend actually soldering in a machine socket. And the reason for that is because I think the pins on that board, the RGB to the HDMI, you know, the adapter board, I think those pins are the round gold-plated pins that are designed to plug into those machined sockets. That's what those machined sockets are designed for. They're designed for the matching round gold-plated pins. Okay? So if you're going to be using an RGB to HDMI adapter board, the type that you plug into the Denise socket, and you're building this board from scratch, right? I would go ahead and solder in a machine socket here, just for here, right there. You may also want to plug in a machine socket here if you are using the dual ROM, the dual Kickstart ROM. There's a guy on eBay, in fact a couple of people on eBay, that sells a dual Kickstart ROM. It has both Kickstart 1.3 and Kickstart 3.1 in one ROM chip. And you switch between the two with a switch that plugs into the board. And I believe that board also has these round gold-plated pins that are designed to plug into machine sockets. So if you're going to be using one of those type of Kickstart ROMs that are on the board, they're mounted on the board that has those gold-plated round pins, okay, then yeah, go ahead and solder in a machine socket here as well. But everywhere else, do not use machine sockets for integrated circuits. Never use that. Never use those sockets. I'm a professional. I know what I'm talking about. I've worked as an electronics assembler and an engineer's assistant for 25 years. I know what I'm talking about. And we never, ever use machine sockets for integrated circuits. Ever. Okay? In all the years that I worked in electronics manufacturing, we never used machine sockets for integrated circuits. Ever. So don't do it. Okay? Think about it. The leads on integrated circuits are rectangular. They're flat. Okay? But the machined sockets, the sockets where the leads plug into, those are round. So you're basically plugging in a rectangular lead into a round hole. That doesn't make any kind of sense at all. So only the 4 outer corners of each lead is touching the inner walls of the holes, the round holes. And I actually remember reading online somewhere that the machine sockets are not designed for integrated circuits. And if you use them for integrated circuits, the mean time between failure rating is only 10. Yes, you heard me right. 10. In other words, you could plug an IC in and out 10 times before the IC leads wear off enough of the inside of those machined holes to where they no longer make a good contact with the leads of the ICs. This is from several of the manufacturers. I actually read the spec sheets from several manufacturers, and they all said the same thing. These are not designed for integrated circuits. If you use them for integrated circuits, the mean time between failure rating on these machine sockets is 10. That's right. So that right there proved to me that I was correct when I read that. But don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. I always recommend that people do their own homework. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. Okay. Anyway, now we're going to go into my main computer room, my computer room where I have Ruby, and I'm going to show you a picture, well, a couple of diagrams. One's going to be of the Amiga 500 computer's RGB port, you know, the connector, and the other one's going to be about of the floppy disk port. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those two ports and what the guy that actually makes these boards, what he do to change these two ports for a more standardized, more readily available connector. So I will see you shortly. Okay, here we are on my main PC, Ruby. And I want to show you these diagrams, or use these diagrams here to help get across what I'm talking about. So, okay, this is a page directly out of the Commodore Amiga 500 Users Manual. And I took this into an art... Well, I first scanned it in using my scanner into Thumbs Plus. And I cropped it to where the whole page would fit on this 1080p HD screen. And then I took it into an art program, and I added these arrows, okay, to better illustrate what I'm talking about. But if you look at the RGB monitor port, you'll see that you only really use these 8 pins right here. Okay, you use the analog red, analog green, analog blue, okay, composite sync, and you use red ground, green ground, blue ground, and your voltage ground, or your common ground. Now, these are not to be confused. They are not the same. Okay, I've noticed a lot of you, when you're making your cables and you're showing how to do it on your YouTube channels, that you hook these 3 pins or these 4 pins together. Don't do that. That's the wrong way to make this cable. Okay, the red, green, and blue signals, they have to have their own dedicated ground. Okay, there's the ground for the red signal, the ground for the green signal, and the ground for the blue signal. They have to have their separate grounds. Those signals have to be grounded. So if you ever have problems with like a noisy screen or fuzziness on your screen, this could be the reason why. Okay,
or you're using an RGB to HDMI, well, SCART to HDMI adapter, and it's not working properly, because some of you have complained to me that you can't get that to work. This could also be the reason why, is because you have these three grounds here, tied in with your normal ground. You don't do that. Okay? The red, green, and blue signals have to have, each one has to have their own separate ground, so keep them separate. So you have 8 pins right here. So you could use a 9-pin sub-D connector in place of the 23-pin sub-D connector on these new Amiga 500 or Amiga 2000 motherboards. Okay, now for those people that want to do gen locking, you're probably also going to need these two signals here. You're also most likely going to need a separate horizontal sync and a separate vertical sync. Okay, composite sync is mainly these two combined, is the best way to describe that. And that doesn't always work. Horizontal sync and vertical sync actually gives a much clearer picture than composite sync. And I've used cables where instead of using composite sync, they actually use horizontal sync and vertical sync. In fact, the cables that I make for Amiga computer monitors, I don't use composite sync. I use horizontal sync and vertical sync, and they work beautifully. Also, if you're using a Commodore monitor with an Atari ST computer, you can't use composite sync. I found that you really need to use a horizontal sync and vertical sync if you want to use a Commodore monitor with an Atari ST computer and you want to custom make the cable. That's how I did it anyway, and it works just fine. You're probably also going to need this signal here, this pin here, this pin, and this pin. So if you count all those together, they come to exactly 15 pins. Okay, so let's do that. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't use the digital signals. These are used for like CGA monitors or old PC monitors or whatever. So we're not using any of those, the digital signals. Yeah, so okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then 15. Yeah, exactly 15 pins. So a 15-pin sub-D connector should also work for the RGB monitor port for these new Amiga 500 and 2000 motherboards. Okay, you only need 8 pins, the minimum, in order to get a monitor, an RGB monitor to work with the Amiga computer. You only need 8 pins. So at the minimum, you need a 9-pin sub-D connector for your video port. But if you also plan to use like a gen lock, okay, you'll probably also need some of these other signals as well. So I would just, if you're going to replace a 23-pin connector on these motherboards, I would swap them out. I would use a 15-pin sub-D connector. And it's a little bit smaller, so you don't have to cut into the Amiga 500's plastic case. The connector would still fit through the hole just fine. Of course, you'd have to custom make your cables for your monitor or your SCART, RGB to SCART cable or whatever you're using. So when you do this, whenever you sell these new improved Amiga 500 and 2000 motherboards, I would also include a diagram or some kind of instructions showing the pinout for the new RGB connector, the 15-pin connector. Okay. Okay, now let's go to the disk drive connector. And again, this is right out of the Amiga 500 user's guide. I just scanned the page in using my scanner, and I cropped it using Thumbs Plus. Now it shows all 23 pins being used, But I have discovered, well, I've learned through the years, that that's not the case. I've noticed from opening up many external Amiga disk drives that usually only 14 or 15 wires are used of the 23 pins. Okay, only 14 or 15 wires are usually used. So again, you can use a 15-pin sub-D connector in place of the 23-pin connector for the external disk drive connector. And because it too is smaller than the 23-pin connector, it will fit through the existing hole of the Amiga 500's case. So you don't have to cut into the case at all, you know. So, yeah. And this here is part of the schematic for a Gotek drive. And this is the 34-pin floppy disk drive pin header that's on the Gotek drive PCB. And if you notice, all of the odd-numbered pins are grounded. Okay, all of the odd-numbered pins are grounded. Okay, only the even-numbered pins are used. And I suspect that this is also true for the external Amiga disk drives. That this is the reason why only 14 or 15 wires are used. Okay. Now you notice that, okay, you got 2, 4, okay, 6 is not used. Pin 6 is not used. 8, okay, that's 8, that's 10, 12, and also 14 is not used. Okay. So if you count the remaining pins, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So yeah, a 15-pin sub-D connector should work for the disk drive connector. So you could replace the now hard to find 23-pin sub-D connector with a 15-pin connector on these new Amiga 500 motherboards and 2000 motherboards. Yeah, I just want to show this and talk a little bit about this, you know. So hopefully you guys that are creating these new Amiga 500 and 2000 motherboards, that maybe you watch this video and maybe, you know, it gives you an idea. You can change out the what do you call it? The traces on the motherboard to accept, instead of 23-pin sub-D connectors, you can solder in instead the 15-pin sub-D connectors. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. My name is Hans George Campbell, and until next time.